Before we jump into today's video, let me first just apologize for my voice. If it sounds raspy or quiet, like you can't hear me, I apologize. I'm currently dealing with allergies, so of course my voice is going with it. But it is not going to stop us from getting into today's important topic, and that is the truth about trauma. So let's get into it. Have you ever reflected back on a situation and thought, I was a little bit out of pocket, or I probably didn't bring my best self to that situation, but you couldn't really understand why, where you went wrong, why you were doing the most? First, that realization that you probably weren't being your best self is profound in and of itself. But take that step a little bit further with the realization that trauma has a way of hijacking us. It hijacks our experiences and the way that we perceive the world, our interactions with other people, and our truths. I know this personally because, and leave me a comment if you can relate to this, I went through life moving as if it was a battlefield. And in a lot of ways, it's because that's what I was taught. But in other ways, it was my subconscious reacting based on past wounds. My trauma body was running the show. I was conditioned to internalize the belief that strength meant being unmovable, right? Always on ready, always ready to defend myself, always making sure people knew not to try me. And even this was the case even when the situation didn't warrant that type of harshness and there was no real threat. And sure, it kept me safe, but it also kept me disconnected from my truth, from my peace, from meaningful relationships, and from my ability to really rest in my softness and to be authentically me. And for many of us, we all knew that girl in high school or college or whatever who would be walking around and she'd have a scowl on her face, or looking mean. She would never smile, keep to herself. That was me. I'm her. And while I can't speak to the experiences of everybody because we're not a monolith, I can say for me, it was because I was in survival mode. And it took a lot of work, a lot of dialogue, a lot of, inner shedding and processing to come to the realization that being in survival mode wasn't the flex that I thought it was. It was just trauma keeping me in a chokehold. There's this really powerful quote by Dr. Bruce Perry in his book, What Happened to You, that says, trauma isn't what happened to you, it is what happens inside of you because of what happened to you. And I think it's really important to keep that quote in mind, especially when we're talking about healing and spiritual development and transformation, because when people think about trauma, they think that it only applies to extreme cases, right? And that's just not true. Trauma isn't just about what happened to you. It's about how your nervous system and your sense of self was impacted by what happened. This is why two people, let's take siblings for example, can grow up in the exact same environment and have the exact same experiences but come up with completely different emotional landscapes. This is why healing, it's not, just labeling your experiences, or my favorite, comparing traumas. It's about going deeper and understanding how those experiences have shaped you and how you show up in the world. This topic is so important, not just for personal healing, but also for collective and communal healing. So if you're interested in diving deeper into this topic, I highly recommend that you pick up What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry. This is not sponsored, by the way. I will link it in my description down below, and you can go ahead and check that out if you want to. When we experience trauma, whether that's from childhood, relationships, or life circumstances, it rewires the way that our brain and our nervous system processes stimuli that's coming in. It tells us that we're unsafe, that we cannot trust, and over time, it can start to feel like these reactions are a part of our identity, that it's just who we are. But that's not it. These are defense mechanisms that we've built up to survive. And honestly, trauma can change everything. There is nothing off limits. It can tell us that love must be earned, that worth is conditional, that we have to perform to be liked, etc. This is where habits like shrinking to fit in or needing to feel like you're in control all the time come into play. Trauma forces us to react to the world instead of engage with it. And if we're not aware and we're not careful, we can begin to start repeating these cycles that were never ours to begin with. So how do you know if trauma is shaping your reality? Here are a few signs. You feel the need to be hyper independent because relying on others feels unsafe. You struggle to accept love or kindness without questioning the motive. You over explain yourself or feel guilty for taking up space. You react strongly or completely shut down whenever you're faced with conflict or criticism. You find yourself repeating patterns that bring pain but feel familiar. If any of this resonates, know that you are not alone. And know that awareness is the first step to reclaiming yourself. So let's talk about it. How do we reclaim ourselves? Healing doesn't mean pretending that the trauma never happened. It's about unlearning the ways that the trauma has shaped you so that you can live in alignment with your true self, not your conditioned self. This means learning to recognize when trauma or fear is speaking instead of truth. This also means developing emotional intelligence and self regulation skills. Practicing self inquiry with questions like, is this belief mine or was it given to me, is incredibly important. And it also means engaging in practices that allow you to reconnect with your intuition, your softness, and your capacity for love. This is a journey of unlearning, remembering, and returning to self. And it isn't easy work, but it is the work that leads to freedom, and that is always worth it. So if you've ever felt like you are living life shaped by past pain instead of present truth, just know you are not alone. And the fact that you are even here questioning, seeking, and reflecting means that you are on your way back to self. And that is worth holding space for. In the next video, we are diving into how to unlearn survival mode and how to step into your most authentic and liberated self. So be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss when it drops. Leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever been in a situation or reflected back and thought, was I doing too much? And let's talk about it. Until next time, be kind to yourself and know that you're doing the work, and that's everything.